All right. I'm getting pinged that we must be live. We're on.
I was going to say it's that magical time. All right. Well, hi everyone. This is Christy from the OpenDaylight team. Thank you for joining us on our first on-air Google Hangout. I will let our Director of Ecosystem Development, Lisa Kaywood, take it over. And just a friendly reminder for our presenters, if you're not speaking, I'll have you guys mute just so we don't hear background noise or anything like that. And I will mute myself as well, but we'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. All right, Lisa, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody for joining us. This should be the first of a number of interesting conversations. What I was really excited about when I first joined the OpenDaylight team was I went around and I talked with all of our members about what they were doing. And there were a number of people who were doing some really, really interesting things, thinking beyond the controller itself to building that into larger solutions for very specific types of projects and ideas. And so today I've invited a couple of those members, Serro and Inocybe and their representatives, to talk with all of us about what exactly they're doing and how they've chosen to approach OpenDaylight a little bit differently than I would say some of our other members have. So first of all, why don't we go ahead and have people introduce ourselves? Nitin, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on. My name is Nitin Serro. I'm the CEO of Serro, and we have been doing traditional networking and software-defined networking over the last 7 years now, better known as software-defined networks. So thank you for having me on.
Great. And Andy.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm Andy Salo. I'm the COO of Inocybe. I definitely am not as cool as to have the company named after me like Nitin, so I'm a little bit jealous, and I'm going to have to talk to Matthew LeMay, our CEO, about that, see if I can get a little name change in there. Inocybe's been involved in networking for quite a few years, and we were one of the original contributors to OpenDaylight and have been contributing since 2013 in the top 5 committers all time. And we do quite a few projects with different companies around deploying and developing on OpenDaylight.
Great. So why don't you tell me a little bit about why you got involved with OpenDaylight, why you chose OpenDaylight as opposed to other platforms on which to build your solutions.
Sure. Nitin, you want to take that first?
Sure. We started with OpenDaylight primarily because large enterprises and government sector wanted a non-commercial solution. They wanted community momentum, but they wanted support from a third party that did not have tangential business needs that they had to also fulfill. So back 4 years ago, it was primarily OpenDaylight, and prior to that, although it was only the flow aspect of it, it was enough to start using that particular feature. Obviously, fast forward 4 years later, there are a lot more features and a rich feature set that we can use. So to answer your question, the primary drivers was a non-commercial without third-party companies that had other business aspects to them.
Okay. Andy, how about Inocybe? I know you were involved, as you say, from the very beginning.
Yeah, Inocybe has been, and in fact, we're very pleased to have Serro as a partner of ours, as they kind of recently, increased their involvement in the OpenDaylight Foundation, which we think is fantastic, and we love the ecosystem of partners. And for us, it really has been about, from the beginning, about creating open networking environments. Prior to OpenDaylight coming along, there was a lot of things that Inocybe was doing in the space around more of just a overlay software solution, infrastructure solutions. And OpenDaylight was, we saw that as the perfect framework for doing all the things that we were already doing, but doing it in a very open way. And OpenDaylight, as you know, has just grown beyond probably anyone's original expectations as far as the types of environments that it is very useful for, even beyond just kind of traditional SDN ODL controllers. And so we're just really excited to have been a part of that the whole way, and being, continuing to be a contributor to that.
So let's talk about some of those solutions. You guys have shared some fairly interesting things with me. When you talk about going beyond sort of traditional controllers, how have you been using OpenDaylight in those situations?
You want me to take that first, Nitin, or?
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, for part of the way that we end up getting involved in so many of these different projects that are ongoing within OpenDaylight is because of the platform we created, which is a SaaS-based platform, software as a service platform, for creating ODL environments and creating ODL distributions that are tailored to a specific use case. And that really drives what is so top of mind with a lot of different environments we see, which is, well, will ODL solve my problem, right? And so, ODL is this great, big, expansive framework that's very flexible. And the downside to that is it's this great, big, expansive framework that's customizable. So, that really shows how you need to kind of take OpenDaylight as a tool and then tailor it to the right sort of solution. And such that we've got many projects that we're involved with customers in the smart city space, which is very, kind of very different from, let's say, a traditional type of deployment. We recently announced, a joint partnership with Avaya, where we're part of their embedded IoT solution for their healthcare initiatives. That is part of their broader SDN fabric and targeting an IoT space. And there are just a whole host of things that say wouldn't be kind of traditional ODL controller focused that tend to be top of mind with some of our customers.
So interesting that a lot of it is coming in the IoT space. Do you see other sort of niches where that plays as well, that you foresee going after?
For us, I'll just answer that real quickly, and then I'll let Nitin jump in. I think we see, I would say, a lot of interest around security in general, right? So security as it relates to networking. So it could be, ACL enforcement. It could be denial of service protection using OpenFlow. It could be, a whole host of things within the security realm. And I don't want to really kind of discount too much the SDN part, right? Because that is for us still tip of the spear, right? I mean, there's so much need within, kind of just a traditional, SDN environment, and doing service function chaining and some of the separation of that, what you would normally want to accomplish with a separation of data plane and control plane. So also, even though there's all these other things, I want to make sure that also kind of stays front and center. Nitin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to answer the original question that you asked, Lisa, is that usually our customers do not ask us about a controller. They do not ask us about ODL. They are the like or similar technologies. They usually know that there is a change in the environment, and they don't know what parts are there. They do know the buzzwords. And so we are able to put a solution for them. And the basis of that solution, over a period of time, we let them know that one of the components for cost reduction has been this open platform. And we are using a few feature sets to achieve their business needs. And so that's how they come to know about ODL. And they are afraid about their intellectual business or property being given to the community. And fortunately, we've got a good legal team that says, hey, this is the ODL framework. You don't have to worry about it. Serro is an integrator, and most of the development is done by the community, and we are using the ODL platform. So it's after a period of time that our customers realize that they've got this tool and the tool is ODL, and then we actually bring them up to speed on how to check out releases, and make sure that they are updated with the tool and the community. So that's the angle that we've approached it from. Not something that we've created, it's just that something we've grown into.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. What I've found consistently is that people tend to think of OpenDaylight as in the same way as they think of a commercial product, as something that ought to be shrink wrapped. It ought to have a specific set of functionality, and it should have a sort of a clearly defined purpose, as opposed to what it really is, which is an open source framework. And so I think that's something that it sort of takes people a little bit of time to sort of get their heads around. And I think you articulated it perfectly, Nitin, when you said we're taking pieces of it, and it's not something that that you get sort of wholesale, so to speak.
That's correct. And at the same time, sorry to interrupt, at the same time, we also make the customer aware about what is GPL, because they would like free and they just consume it without knowing that some of their intellectual property may end up in the community. And so not only are we doing the system integration of using this tool, in time they know the tool is called ODL, but also making aware of just the openness of the platform, so that there's a segregation of what intellectual property they develop, they can keep separated out through an API into the tool that we are using. And in time, we say, hey, this is the name of the tool that has existed for 5, 6, 7 years, which is ODL.
Right. Yeah. So, what you're both touching on is sort of the need for customer education about open source in general. Have you found a lot of resistance to that, or people really, open to open source and they just don't know what they don't know? What would you say?
I would say it's mostly the latter. I sometimes say to people, there's free as in beer and free as a puppy, right? So you free beer is awesome. A free puppy, not so great. That's going to be a lot of work involved. Right? We help them with that aspect, because it is more like a puppy, right? So there is some care and feeding, and you want somebody to keep you between the guardrails and make sure, you're not getting off track of perhaps what is not as developed within the community versus some other things. I think that's probably part of the value proposition that both of us provide to our end users.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did you want to add on?
Yeah, I was just saying I agree. It's exactly the same as educating the users. Some of them they really don't care. They want the solution. Some of them are really interested because they see the value of the open community, and some of them are interested because they see the value of the open community, but they also want to learn on how to protect their intellectual property.
Yeah.
And I would say the use cases keep evolving as well. One of the things we didn't touch on yet was enterprise, right? And enterprise is also, I think, starting to grow strong. We did actually just yesterday, we did an announcement with Oracle around our partnership with them and developing for and making ODL compatible with Oracle Solaris. And so as Oracle is also a sort of a customer of our platform and uses that, we worked with them to help create this for OpenStack integrated environments and make sure that it's very applicable to an enterprise use case. And so, it's one of those things that there's like, the only constant is change, as they say, right? And so that's what we're seeing with ODL and why we think it's such a powerful framework.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is something that I have been saying for some time is it's not, 3 years ago, I would have people come up to me at a trade show or whatever and say, tell me about SDN because I want to do SDN. And I'd say, well, so why do you want to do SDN? Well, we just want to do SDN. And I think we're getting more to a point of maturity in the market where people realize that it's more about what they're trying to achieve and then finding the right tool for it. would you say that that's accurate in your experience as well?
Go ahead, Nitin. I'll let you take that one.
Yes, I would say yes, it is very accurate. We generally do have to educate the customers about SDN, and then we talk to them about the different players in the ecosystem, whether it's data center, how would OpenStack fit in, if it's Neutron, which part of Neutron, and if it's multiple data centers, then obviously ODL comes into a bigger picture of it, and that takes a fair amount of time on the education side of it before an engagement happens. And I feel it's always good to do that, primarily such that on the business side, they know what they're getting into, such that the operations are eased when there's a transfer of operations once the solution is in place. If not even a transfer of operations, even us running the operation for them, they know that it's not, like Andy mentioned, this puppy dog that you get, it's going to grow. You're going to have to take care of it. You're going to have to do things to it, right? And as time goes on, it's no longer a puppy. And so having said that, I would agree that there's education and there's care and feeding, and making sure that the customer is aware of that before they can actually commit is what is important, and we try to articulate.
Time do you think that will get to a point that customers don't need to care or know that they're running SDN or running OpenDaylight, or is that something that's always going to be important to them?
I've been in networking for 20 years. Unfortunately, you're going to have to care over a period of time. Because of the nanosecond changes that are happening, you would always have to try to stay ahead of that curve. Whether it's adding the latest updates from ODL, whether it is adding a new feature on your own, or getting somebody else to add new features. In order to stay competitive on the business side, you cannot use technology that has been done even 8 months ago, 18 months ago, leave alone longer than that. So you will need care and feeding, and you're going to have to make that as a conscious decision to make sure that your business, whatever your business is, and is functioning. And in order for that to happen, is you need the plumbing, which is the ODL part of it, to be updated constantly and care and fed. Now, it can vary to the degree of care and feeding you may want. If it's your own business and let's assume you're doing DDoS mitigation, then you would obviously want malware detection up to the second, right? And maybe the plumbing aspects of ODL would be maybe once every 3 months, and that's fine, but it's going to happen, but not at the pace at which your main business is happening.
I agree with everything that Nitin just said. I would add to that while we're talking about analogies, of puppy dogs and so forth, might also, he mentioned the plumbing, right? I mean, you're always going to need a plumber. You always need a network guy that is going to be producing those services for the consumers of him or her, which are the business units or the business in general. And so you can make the network sort of invisible to the business users, but the networking guy is still going to have to know the parts that are being used to build it, like ODL.
Okay, so so at the end of the day, it does matter that it's OpenDaylight versus something else, because you need to know how that works and how to work within that community. There is an upside for the customer in that they have an opportunity to either work through you or directly in the community to drive those changes, or do them on their own for themselves, or with you for themselves. Are there any takeaways that you've had from customers already as to how this is affecting or changing how they actually do business?
Yes, I can take that.
Go ahead.
Question. There are two applications that we've used ODL. At first, we did not make the customer aware of it. And then over a period of time, we did make them aware of it because they could see the financial impact within the first month. And so
When you
the
say
two customers,
what do you mean?
the financial benefit of implementing, and lack of a better word, an SDN solution, right? The underlining part of that SDN solution was ODL working with a vendor that supported OpenFlow and another vendor that supported OpenFlow on the optical side.
Okay.
So they did see a financial benefit within the first month, and they were quite a bit puzzled as to how. This is a malware detection company, and they had close to, so by the way, both the customers, different segments, but had the same problem, which is their overage charges of their data centers for bandwidth were in the millions. And so how do you do cost reduction and flow traffic across their 10 data centers or 100 data centers that they had? And so we were able to track flows, track BGP, and optimize path, and be able to predict ahead of time using ODL. And so where I was going with this solution was, within the first month itself, the customers that were paying, $3 million in overage charge a month was able to reduce that to zero.
Wow.
So that's number one. At the same time, this one particular customer that had 100 data centers, they specifically said that, how are you doing this across countries? Germany has their own laws that, user data cannot flow out of Germany. And so, then we had to let them know about ODL. ODL has BGP aspects. This is what they're using. But basically, there was no user experience that suffered due to the cost optimization or flow optimization. So I think, so to answer your question, is that's where we get into the details of ODL, and that's when they say, okay, this is happening too fast to realize the benefit of something that we've been paying almost 1 year, $2 to $3 million in overage per month.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, those are definitely very significant numbers, and that's fantastic to hear. I know that what we often see is that we've got customers that are trying to bring in ODL under one premise, right? Because they've got a whole set of problems they're trying to solve, and they know it's going to be really good for all of them, but they want to get it in there on one use case, right, to prove the value there, and then just build on it, because they know the rest of the use cases are sort of, I don't want to say free, but much reduced cost than the other ones, right? So if you get it in there once, and then you establish that architecture, that data plane control plane separation, and start leveraging some of the functionality, then it's a whole lot easier to turn up new services. So it's a that's where I think you had asked earlier, just kind of where some of the things we're seeing. That's where I think things are going. They've kind of gone beyond any sort of proof of concept necessarily to really, how do I get this into production more quickly and easily? Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to provide with our platform.
Awesome. All right, so I keep this relatively short, but I if we had any questions from people on the bridge right now. Christy, I think we can use the chat. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me take a look. Give me just 1 second here. It looks like we don't have any questions currently.
All right.
Guess you covered it all, maybe.
All right. Well, if people have questions about any of this, of course, I'm at Real Lisa C on Twitter. Inocybe is at Inocybe Tech on Twitter, and Serro is at Serro Tech, I believe, on Twitter. or you can also send email to the OpenDaylight community, and we will go from there.
Yeah, our Twitter handle is @Team Serro.
Team Serro, I apologize. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us today, Andy and Nitin, and Christy, thanks for organizing.
Sure.
And
yeah, thanks so much, Lisa.
Community.
And thank you as well. It's been great.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
All right. I'm getting pinged that we must be live. We're on.
I was going to say, it's that magical time. All right. Well, hi, everyone. This is Christy from the OpenDaylight team. Thank you for joining us on our first on-air Google Hangout. I will let our Director of Ecosystem Development, Lisa Kaywood, take it over. And just a friendly reminder for our presenters, if you're not speaking, I'll have you guys mute just so we don't hear background noise or anything like that. And I will mute myself as well, but we'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. All right, Lisa, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody for joining us. This should be the first of a number of interesting conversations. What I was really excited about when I first joined the OpenDaylight team was I went around and I talked with all of our members about what they were doing. And there were a number of people who were doing some really, really interesting things, thinking beyond the controller itself to building that into larger solutions for very specific types of projects and ideas. And so today I've invited a couple of those members, Serro and Inocybe and their representatives, to talk with all of us about what exactly they're doing and how they've chosen to approach OpenDaylight a little bit differently than I would say some of our other members have. So first of all, why don't we go ahead and have people introduce ourselves? Nitin, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on. My name is Nitin Serro. I'm the CEO of Serro.
Developing on OpenDaylight.
Great. So why don't you tell me a little bit about why you got involved with OpenDaylight, why you chose OpenDaylight as opposed to other platforms on which to build your solutions?
Sure. Nitin, you want to take that first?
Sure. We started with OpenDaylight primarily because large enterprises and government sector wanted a non-commercial solution. They wanted community momentum, but they wanted support from a third party that did not have tangential business needs and we have been doing traditional networking and software-defined networking over the last 7 years now, better known as software-defined networks. So thank you for having me on.
Great. And Andy.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm Andy Salo. I'm the COO of Inocybe. I definitely am not as cool as to have the company named after me like Nitin, so I'm a little bit jealous, and I'm going to have to talk to Matthew Lemay, our CEO, about that, see if I can get a little name change in there. Inocybe's been involved in networking for quite a few years, and we were one of the original contributors to OpenDaylight and have been contributing since 2013 in the top 5 committers all time. And we do quite a few projects with different companies around deploying. And
they had to also fulfill. So back 4 years ago, it was primarily OpenDaylight. And prior to that, although it was only the flow aspect of it, it was enough to start using that particular feature. Obviously, fast forward 4 years later, there are a lot more features and a rich feature set that we can use. So to answer your question, the primary drivers was a non-commercial without third-party companies that had other business aspects to them.
Okay. Andy, how about Inocybe? I know you were involved, as you say, from the very beginning.
Yeah, Inocybe has been, and in fact, we're very pleased to have Serro as a partner of ours, as they kind of